Hello, good afternoon from the Cambridge University Social Impact and Sustainability Society. For the last 2 weeks, we have been talking about the big event that's coming on, the election of the new Chancellor of the university. We have the pleasure to interview some of the candidates last week, and today we are very honored to have here Lord Smith. Also, we have our Vice President Michael Sanchez and our President JP that's going to lead the discussion. Let's go.
Thank you, Renata.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Renata. I believe that Lord Smith doesn't need an extensive introduction among the university community, given his long association with the university from his time as a student at Pembroke and his prominent political career in the UK, including a cabinet position and now the Pembroke Master for many years already. And I think you're still in this role at the moment.
I am. I've done 10 years as Master of Pembroke, and I am due to come to the end of my time as Master at the end of this month. So I only have 3 weeks still to go.
So it would be perfect timing for you.
Exactly.
Thanks. So thanks for your time today. And we would love to ask you a few questions on the social impact and sustainability aspects regarding your campaign for the chancellorship, which we've also done with a few of the other candidates last week. And we have another one coming up tomorrow, by the way, with Gina Miller. So we've prepared a bit and looked at your statement and the one on the university website, as well as a few other sources we found. And you've had the role as chairman of the Environment Agency, so that is a clear indicator of your expertise in this regard. You've stated that you have a very clear commitment to diversity, openness, and ethics. And notably, you've been the first openly gay cabinet minister anywhere in the world at the time when you were in government. And so I would say that this speaks in itself for the social impact part of your campaign. And also we found some strong evidence regarding sustainability, such as the Mill Lane development of your college, which offers nearly 100 new student rooms, and the site uses air source heat pumps, solar panels, and rainwater capture methods. In addition to that, we found that you have overseen Pembroke's commitment to fully divest from fossil fuels by the end of 2023. So that would have been 2 years ago. I also saw in the statement on the SU website, though, that some of that is still ongoing, but it is in its final stages. Can we say that?
Yes. The one bit of Pembroke's investment that I can't guarantee to be completely free of any investment in fossil fuels is our investment with the Cambridge University Endowment Fund, QF. They have said that they are committed to divesting completely by 2030, but we simply don't know at the moment where they are invested. They are not as transparent as they ought to be in what they invest in. but we have a portion of the college's investment with them. All the rest of our investment, where it is directly controlled by the college, we have already divested from fossil fuels. It's only the QF bit that is in any doubt, and they do claim that they have a program of divestment already underway.
And if you were successful in your candidacy for Chancellor of the University of Cambridge, could and would you do something about this, given
Uh,
that the role is largely ceremonial? Would you
yes,
be in a better position?
the thing about the Chancellor role is you don't have any control over anything. It is a largely ceremonial position, but you do have really substantial influence, and you can and should use that influence in order to persuade the rest of the university to do good things. And one of the things I would certainly be wanting to try and persuade the university of is to bring much greater transparency into what QF do about their investments, and also to persuade them to speed up their divestment from fossil fuel companies.
And to be a little bit more concrete on that, how exactly could a chancellor do that? That
By
persuasion.
advocating, the Chancellor has a voice, has the ability to be an advocate and a champion for particular things within the university. The Chancellor has the ability to sit down on a regular basis with the Vice Chancellor, can advocate for particular policies. I would want to do that, even though the Chancellor has no direct executive authority over anything. It's a little bit like being master of a college. You don't control what happens in the college, but you can exercise huge influence. And one of the reasons that Pembroke has divested from fossil fuel investments is because I argued with my colleagues that that is something we ought to be doing, and they listened.
Good. So it appears that you have a track record of success on that point, and have done so successfully at your college. Thanks for sharing that. We also had a look at the Pembroke College Strategic Vision 2024-2030, which is available on your college's website. And there you also state, we will strengthen our commitment to environmental sustainability in our buildings and our activities. So we've already touched upon the buildings. And recently I walked past the Mill Lane development, and it looks very nice. And it's great that you have been able to include a lot of sustainability elements in the development. Another point we wanted to touch upon is the plant-based Cambridge campaign. So I'm not sure how familiar you are with this. Last year, there was a vote at the student union with a majority of about 70% of non-abstaining student representatives that passed. And it had the aim to transition to 100% plant-based catering at the student union and the university's catering services. So of course, there are a lot of different bodies within the university. The colleges have their own decision-making process and the departments and so on. So this wasn't a mandate for the whole university, but for the student union and the related catering services. But already there, even though it passed, in practice it failed, because one of the reasons is that the board of trustees of the student union seems to hold veto power. So they promised some steps in that way, but in practice, little was done. And another initiative which came more from the university side is called Chem Eat Zero. And again, here the call for the colleges and the universities to transition to more plant-based catering. So our two questions, what is your view on this development? Do you support it? If yes, what could be done to make it happen? Because even though the scientists and the students want this change, the university bureaucracy seems to get in the way. And maybe also, how is this development playing out at Pembroke so far?
I have to say, I think the most important thing, whether it's in college or more widely across the university, is that choice should be available to students. In Pembroke, we make sure that there is always a plant-based alternative available. We don't insist that that is the only thing that's available. And I think I would have difficulty arguing for it being mandatory rather than an available choice. I of course realize that the science of at least some non-plant-based food creation is contributing to global warming. We are doing less red meat in Pembroke than we used to. And it is, of course, red meat particularly that is contributing to unsustainable impacts. But I think the important thing is that as much choice as possible is available to students wherever the dining options are happening.
Okay, so I suppose this is the position of Pembroke College, where you're the master. But maybe let's go back to the student union, where there has been a motion which passed by majority. So it's a sign that the students want this, and yet it doesn't have the desired effect because of the bureaucracy. Is this something where you would say, okay, maybe I wouldn't go as far as 100%, but I respect your vote and I will help you to implement this. I'll see what I can do. Or would you hold a similar position as you've just said and said, okay, actually, you are asking for 100% catering as a student union, but maybe we shouldn't go that far.
I again, it's not the role of the Chancellor to determine this. That's up to others. But my approach would be exactly the same as I have outlined here in college, which is to say. Um, uh, Plant-based alternatives should absolutely be available. There should be the choice available to anyone who wants them. Um, but I would always want to consider the needs and wishes of the whole student body rather than just the people who voted in a particular way at a particular time.
I understand that position, but then that goes um, that so going back to the goals of the campaign here, it isn't to give students that choice because that is largely already there. So colleges, and if you go to a formal dinner, if you go to lunch and so on, that choice is already there. So maybe 10, 20 years ago that was different, but in 2025 at Cambridge you can find these choices. But the goal of this campaign is to make the catering more sustainable with a less impact on the environment and the climate. And that is why these campaigns and the students call for this. So
I can absolutely see the logic of that, but the two principles I would want to enshrine, the first is choice available to every student, and the second is a gradual moving away from red meat, which is the particular particularly unsustainable form of food production.
okay, and maybe one last follow up on this point. So I understand that your position is there should be choice. We shouldn't go all the way to 100%. But then how far should we go? So we have a part of the university that says, okay, uh, we are happy for you to have this choice. We want to have our choice too. Generally, we support your campaign, but then how far do we go? What is your position, and how far would you support this? And if so, how?
I would certainly envisage wanting to encourage people to take the plant-based options, but the fundamental principle of choice must, in my view, still be there.
Is it possible to give an approximate number or goal of how far we should go?
I wouldn't want to impose a quota on this. It should be entirely up to the students to make their own decisions on it.
Okay. Thanks for these comments. So we've discussed divestment. We've discussed sustainability in buildings and other ways such as catering.
I would
And
just add on sustainability in
yes,
buildings. Um, uh, it's relatively easy when you're building new buildings, as we were in Dolby Court on the Mill Lane site. It's relatively easy to build in sustainability. Um, we've done air source heat pumps and solar panels on all of the new buildings that we've created. We have also, however, made sure that the existing buildings that we had to retain also are sustainable in their energy use and recapture of water. Um, and with existing buildings, it's much more difficult to do. Um, so on our historic site, we have now converted the whole of our Foundress Court, which was built about 25 years ago, to air source heat pumps. We've converted a number of our hostels in the streets around Pembroke to air source heat pumps. It's much more difficult to do for some of the medieval buildings that we have, but we do have an ambition to gradually move towards carbon neutrality in the whole of our building estate.
and is that something that you would like to tackle if you were to win the election?
As Chancellor, again, it's something you can advocate for, you can champion, you can use your voice to influence what the university as a whole does. You can't actually do the organising or instructing because that's up to others to do.
Yeah, we understand that after having spoken with several of the candidates, there's just a very common theme. The Chancellor on its own can't do much concrete, but you can use your position of influence and persuasion as you've also laid out just now. I think Renata also had a question.
Yes, I have two questions. My first question is, I was fascinated when I saw your statement, Lord Smith. Um, all the work that you did towards the art with the Nesta, and also making museum and art galleries free. I would like to know, as a chancellor, if you have any plans to make Cambridge an even more creative place. And my second question is talking about the choices. What is your opinion regarding the students' right, freedom of speech, and the right to protest? That are my two questions.
On the first question, the creativity of Cambridge. Cambridge is a naturally creative place. The arts flourish rather well in Cambridge, and uh, again, as Chancellor, what you can do is persuade and influence. And I would certainly want to encourage the increasing flourishing of artistic activity and creativity across Cambridge. Happily, all the Cambridge museums are already free. I would want to maintain that if at all possible. The On the freedom of speech point, I am a firm believer in the importance of freedom of speech, and that also involves the freedom and the right to protest. Um, there are times when protest spills over into hate speech or incitement to violence, and that is illegal and should not be permitted. But entirely up to that point, the right to protest about anyone or anything is part of freedom of speech. And one of the things I've said to everyone who's asked is freedom of speech is also about the freedom to contest, to debate, to challenge, to disagree. And that is the way in which learning happens. It's what a university should be all about. And the right to protest is absolutely part of that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
On that point, we have observed among the students and also in this race for the role of Chancellor, a debate on this point. And you will be well aware of this as you are a member of the university. There's been a couple of injunctions recently at the university to limit protest in some ways. What is your view on that?
The injunctions, both the ones taken out by the university itself, but also the injunctions taken out by Trinity and Johns and Magdalen, were in order to prevent disruption of either studies or the taking of exams or graduation ceremonies. And the right to protest, which I would defend fully, does not involve the right to disrupt a fellow students' studies or graduation ceremonies. The right to protest must be something that recognizes the rights of others as well.
Some students seem to fear that if they now protest near the Senate House or during their graduation ceremony, as we have often seen recently, that they now risk of committing a criminal offense, even if they, I mean, it's debatable how disturbing that would be. Maybe they bring a flag to their own graduation, or maybe they make a statement while they're standing there. Should students be very careful about that now?
We had a student in the recent BA graduation that I presided at, who silently removed a shawl from his jacket and put it over his head after he'd received his degree. it was entirely done appropriately and proportionately, and absolutely no one objected, and no one took any action at all about it. But he was making his views very clearly known. Um, uh, the Where it becomes more problematic is if someone um, disrupts a ceremony for their fellow students. Then it does become more problematic. I don't think the criminal law should be invoked in such circumstances. But I would strongly appeal to students to think of the well-being of their fellow students before they try and interrupt a ceremony.
You say that the criminal law shouldn't be applied in such situations, but isn't the current situation that it may be applied in such circumstances, given that we have these injunctions now?
I would certainly hope that it isn't, but that people would naturally respect the injunctions. The the encampment that happened outside Trinity and then outside John's, which were directly disturbing students who were taking their exams in rooms immediately adjacent to the rather noisy encampment. That was not students thinking about the needs of their fellow students. And there is an absolute right to express your opinions. There is not a right to disrupt the exams of your fellow students, and that should have been respected.
And while you say again that the criminal law shouldn't be applied in these situations, the situation now is that it may well be applied. Might there have been a better way to solve this instead of getting these injunctions?
It is always better to persuade than to injunct. But if an encampment, for example, if an attempt is made to persuade and there is an unreasonable response, then it may well be that the only possible way of ensuring that students' lives and exams are not disrupted is to bring an injunction, which is the decision that the various colleges and the university in these instances did.
So on that point, you would defer the decision to the individual colleges?
I would, and it depends entirely on what the impact is on fellow students. The last year, for example, the encampment outside King's caused no particular disruption to exams or to student activities, and no injunction was taken out, rightly. There was no attempt to remove the encampment. There should not have been any attempt to remove the encampment. If it had happened and had been causing real disruption at the time of the taking of exams, then it would have been a different case. But if there is no disturbance or disruption of essential student activity then or learning, then I don't think injunctions are the right way to proceed.
I only have one more point on this topic of freedom of speech. I'm not sure if Renata or Michael have any other questions. So I'll conclude my part following this. But feel free, Lord Smith, before we finish this, to add any further points you would like to make in regard to social impact and sustainability regarding your campaign. So here's my last point on the topic of freedom of speech. And that is, if you look at the, so we have several injunctions now. We have some from the colleges, but we also have one from at least one from the university, covering Senate House and the area around it. And if you look at the injunction, which we've done, it is brought by all the masters of the colleges together. And what was asked for was going a lot further than what the court granted. So we understand that the university, together with all the masters, wanted this to be applied for, I believe, 2 years or even longer, and to cover a much wider area than was granted by the court. So given that the injunction says it's brought forward by all of the masters, does that mean you would have preferred to have it on that much wider scope?
No, I think where the injunctions for the Senate House are necessary relates to degree ceremonies and only to degree ceremonies, where students and their parents are, it's a very special day for them, and they should have a right not to be disrupted or unduly disturbed.
So you support it for degree ceremonies?
Yep. And that is certainly from the various discussions we have had amongst masters of colleges, that is the entire purpose of the injunctions in relation to the Senate House.
Okay, so once the ceremonies are over, then the protests can continue.
I would be entirely relaxed to see voluble protest happening outside the moments of degree ceremonies.
Renata, Michael, did you have any other questions?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Lord Smith, is there anything else you would like to add on social impact and sustainability regarding your campaign?
Just to say on sustainability, it is enormously important for the future. When I was Shadow Secretary of State for Environmental Protection back in the mid-1990s, I wrote the then Labour Party's environmental policy entitled In Trust for Tomorrow. It committed the future Labour government for the first time ever to targeting reductions in greenhouse gas emissions and climate change impact. That has remained through my time as chairman of the Environment Agency and now as Master of Pembroke. That has remained a really important part of what I've been all about. So I will certainly want to champion the importance of sustainability and policies to maintain sustainability as Chancellor.
Thank you very much. I believe we are running out of time, and you probably have other commitments today. For those who are eligible to vote, I believe the opportunity is open until Friday online and one more time on Wednesday in person at the Senate House.
That is correct, yeah.
Thank you very much for your time today. It's been our pleasure to host you.
Thank you.
And all the best.
Thank you very much.